From a story originally set in 2025, in which America is a totalitarian state ruled over by an evil network that feeds people propaganda and lies. When did you first decide to do another documentary?
Did you say earlier what the cover of the book actually says?
Go ahead.
So the 1982, like first edition paperback, when it was published under Richard Bachman's name, Stephen King's pseudonym, the cover of the book says, "Welcome to the year 2025, where the best men don't run for president, they run for their lives." It's genuinely the cover of the book. A little bit on the nose.
Your version of the film is much closer to the Stephen King story than a previous screen incarnation. And I saw a photograph of you with Stephen King. Now, I have never met Stephen. I did my PhD in horror fiction. I've never met Stephen King. Tell me about you and Stephen King. How did you meet? How involved was he? Tell me.
I mean, the first contact I ever had with him, well, he gave us a press quote for Shaun of the Dead,
which he loved,
years ago, which was amazing and sort of blew my mind as somebody who started reading Stephen King books at age 12. And then more recently, we'd sort of started actually emailing each other and mostly about music. It sort of turned into a tradition of, he's a big rock fan. And
loves the Ramones.
Yeah, and I turned into a tradition of me sending him new rock bands that I thought he would enjoy. So on his birthday, I would send him like albums by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, Australian psych rockers. And then like, but
this is like you were sending him mixtapes. It's like a kind of romance thing.
It's like my girlfriend in Maine. No, I mean, and then when I was actually working on the movie, which didn't start properly until like 2022, I had this, even though we have each other's emails, and he would have been well aware that I was working on it, yeah. I didn't want to email him about it directly and send him the script because he's an executive producer, so he had kind of like script sign off until it was definitely happening because I did not want to be the boy who cried wolf, because to talk to him about it and it not happen would have been so heartbreaking to me. So I waited until the last minute to send him the screenplay, and you know, the email started, as I'm sure you are aware, we've been working on The Running Man. So that was the first time we actually, like, you know, sending him the script and getting his, you know, approval on it.
Were you terrified waiting for his notes or response? Or
he's sort of the most famous English teacher in the world, and so it did feel that weekend. Myself and Michael McCall felt like, oh my God, we're handing in our coursework, and it was a very sort of sweaty weekend waiting for Stephen King to respond. And at first, which was kind of worse almost, he started screen capping bits of the script that he liked. And at a certain point, my heart couldn't take it. I was just like, please just read the whole thing. But he was really generous. And then basically, like, I mean, aside, he had some cast approval. Like, he wanted to know who was playing some of the main parts. And Glenn, you know, like, he was not completely au fait with what Glenn had done. And I said, you should watch Richard Linklater's Hitman, which he watched and loved. And then was like, great, amazing. And then pretty much during the shoot, just like, let us get on with it. And it wasn't until we had done the second, like, test screening of the movie that, you know, I watched it, and I'd never spoken to him on the phone, but I sent him an email saying, enjoy the movie tonight, call me afterwards. And so I did speak to him on the phone for the first time after he just watched it. It was wild.
And what did he say?
I mean, he loved it. It was great. It was like the best, you know, like sort of, I mean, it is that weird thing where usually, like, you know, as a director, you're sort of making the film for an audience of one, in the sense of, like, I always want to be like, if I didn't make this movie, I would like to be the biggest fan of it. But in this case, it was sort of changed a little bit, because it's like, I want him to really like it. And in fact, when you're also making a movie, you're trying to live up to the movie that's in your head. And during the production, because he liked the screenplay, loved the screenplay, I was now having to live up to the film in his head as well. So there's a lot of pressure. And then more recently, again, I was in New York for Comic-Con. This was only weeks before finishing it. We actually only finished this film a couple of weeks ago, which is kind of crazy. We started shooting this movie November the 3rd, 2024, like just over a year ago. I said, I'm going to be in New York. I would love to meet you before the film comes out. So I flew to Bangor, Maine, and met Stephen King. And one funny aside with that is that when me and my girlfriend landed and got a taxi, the taxi driver said, first time in Maine? I was like, no, we've both been to Portland before. He goes, but first time in Bangor. He goes, oh, if it's your first time in Bangor, I'll take you past Stephen King's house. And then we're like, And then he goes, so what are you guys in town for? I said, oh, we're having dinner with a friend. I wasn't going to tell this taxi driver that I was meeting Stephen King. I've seen Misery. So
So, I mean, it's a huge project. I'm right in thinking that it's the biggest. I mean, obviously, Scott Pilgrim was a huge production, but this is a really, really big project. The thing that's really interesting is you don't appear to have been reined in at all. It looks like your film. How much of any fights involved, or was it just no, Edgar, you do what you want to do?
I mean, I feel, I mean, making a film with the studio, I mean, ultimately the audience is the sort of the judge of that.
Okay.
And, we had a first test screening and it went really well. And so I wasn't really feel like we had to compromise too much, which was great. Like the screenplay that we wrote is the film that we made. So I feel very I feel very fortunate about that. Because I think sometimes when you make films like this, like you feel like you're getting away with something. So I feel very fortunate, and I feel really proud that this is the movie we got to make, and with the studio, it's kind of wild.
But it must. I mean, one of the things that I imagine that Stephen King likes about it is extraordinary that if you look at this and Long Walk, and the fact that he was kind of projecting forward into an imaginary dystopian future, and I'm not saying this entirely flippantly. He got a lot of things right in terms of the way in which he envisaged things would go. I mean, the only thing I can think of as being a precedent before in terms of the chronology is Rollerball for my generation, because I'm obviously older than you. But he was uncanny in predicting just how the media may go forward, how reality TV, how game shows. I mean, that must be one of the reasons why he likes the film as much as he does.
I mean, it's very prescient in the book, and also it's published in '82, but it was written in 1972.
Yeah.
And so the fact, if you haven't read the book, that the scene where like Ben Richards makes a tape and then the network manipulate his words is right from the book. And obviously, this is something we're now living with on a daily basis. So I mean, the thing I find amazing about it, and in talking to him about it, is the thing that he's a struggling writer in Maine at the time. He's working in a laundry and writing sort of his short stories at night. The stuff that I find crazy in the book, that's all in the film, is all about the backstage machinations of the show and everything that goes into that. All stuff that we've come to know in the last 25 years of reality TV, that all of that stuff goes on. And also what happens when, actors that get into kind of Hollywood, you at least have the expectation of what it means to be a star. But obviously members of the public involved in any TV who are like made to be like a national laughingstock, or made to be like the pantomime villain. And if there's there's lots of pretty dark stories out there all around the world in terms of sort of reality TV. And so it was great for us to kind of work on the script with the knowledge of all of that and the book as a basis.
How did you balance the sort of the thriller elements, the political satire elements, with the kind of black comedy? Because I was at the back watching it here, because I'd seen it before, but not on the huge IMAX screen, which is terrific to see. And the laughs were getting laughs, and you have to get that balance right between the stuff that is that is darkly comic and the stuff that is serious. How hard was it to balance that?
I mean, I guess it was just something. I mean, it's partly, I guess, my own sensibility, and also I think that Stephen King, I think, does have a very dark sense of humor.
Yeah.
And even though the book is pretty gritty, it has a sort of a real sort of mean satirical streak in it. So a lot of that was there in the material, and it just felt like sort of taking the ball and running with it.
You're on the new dollars. We have the face of Arnie, who of course was the star of the original, the Paul Michael Glaser version. Has Arnie seen this?
Well, I'll tell you two stories.
You have two Arnie stories?
Yes.
Wow.
The before and the after.
You've changed.
So obviously we thought, it's much more faithful to the book, but we wanted to pay a little homage to the '87 film. So we thought, what if in this different reality, if we're saying that it's a slightly alternate 2025, like it's a slightly alternate reality, like a retro futuristic, we thought it's like the imagination of Stephen King's '80s idea of 2025. So we thought, what if in this timeline, the rules have changed, people born outside the United States could be president? What if Arnold Schwarzenegger was on the $100 bill? And we actually made all the other bills as well, but you only see the 100. And we had to get his photo approval. So I had to write a nice letter to him. He approved it, but I didn't actually speak to him. Glenn had actually been in a movie with him before and was friends with his son, Patrick. Okay. So we kind of felt, coming up to the shoot, it was like, we should probably talk to him. It would be the classy thing to do. And it was coming up to the start of the shoot, and I said, we should do it now. You can't do it retroactively. We have to talk to him before we start filming. So me and Glenn on a Saturday night, we were watching. Usually, I like to watch a good luck film before starting a production.
Okay.
And we decided to watch Sam Peckinpah's The Getaway because I thought it had some relevance to this as like it's an action road movie. You know,
I love the idea that you chose a Sam Peckinpah film as a good luck film. But carry on.
It's got a happy ending.
Yeah.
So we were watching about halfway through, and then Glenn looks at his phone and goes, "Oh, I've got like 4 missed calls from Patrick Schwarzenegger." And so it's like, and we get on, and then Patrick says, "Oh, I'll just patch Dad in," and then we're FaceTiming with Arnold, who's sitting in a kind of sun chair, and the first thing he says, he goes, "Oh, you have a gap in your teeth." And I was like, immediately like covered my mouth, like, oh my God, Mr. Universe is picking on me. And then you go, and he said, "When I first came to Hollywood, I had a gap in my teeth, but then I got it fixed." And I said, "Oh, I haven't had my gap fixed yet." And he goes, "No, don't do it. When I got the gap fixed, my box office went down." It is good luck. That's the first thing he said. Cut to, and he was very, very generous, and he just gave us his blessing. And he actually said, on the phone call, which is true, is he said, "Oh, you know, I always thought the first one could be a good remake because the first one was compromised. You probably know, like they sacked the director, Andrew Davis, the director of The Fugitive, no less, like shot 2 weeks on the original movie and they let him go." Anyway, he said that, and then
Arnold had always said he thought that as it was, the direction was much too televisual. When it was originally imagined, it was much more cinematic. But as it turned out, in the end,
and he said in retrospect that it was a mistake to get rid of Andrew Davis.
Yeah, absolutely.
And anyway, cut to last week. We're thinking we should show him the movie. So me and Glenn are in LA, and he's watching the movie, and we're standing outside a screening room. And Glenn was laughing at me because I was getting very sweaty because I was thinking, "Oh God, what if he hates it?" And I think like sort of like Stephen King's giving it the thumbs up, but like what is Arnold going to think? He comes out of the screening room, and the first thing he says is, he goes, "Oh God, it's fantastic." And then the second thing he says, he goes, "It looks like it was so hard to make." And he goes, "Glenn, you have the blood and the sweat. It's so uncomfortable making an action film. I never enjoyed making the action films. I like watching them at the end. I much prefer making Kindergarten Cop and Twins." I kid you not, that's what he said. I'm like standing there going, "This is amazing." Like, anyway, he was very, very kind. And so that felt like very sweet. And he didn't need to do that. It's very sweet of him.
So the other star of the film is, of course, Brolin's teeth. Tell us about the teeth.
It was, I think he got the idea from Glenn Close, he said. I think he'd just done a movie with Glenn Close, and she had like a teeth guy in London. So he kind of like thought, you know, he's a sort of handsome reality show producer, and they always look tanned and they've got perfect teeth. So he thought he'd get kind of veneers done.
And when we were just talking out in the foyer, you said, "Did you notice there's a little kind of Easter egg in there of the other Brolin?"
2 Brolins in the movie.
Did anyone else notice this?
This guy.
Gentleman there.
You've just earned yourself some bragging points there. No, so basically in the scene in William H. Macy's basement, and this was written into the script a long time ago, we thought on those old like cathode ray TVs, the TVs that don't watch you back, we have an old film playing. We can foreshadow the end hijack scene by having a hijack scene from another film. And we were talking about the airport films, and I said to Michael McCall, "Oh, there's this film called Skyjacked, and I'm pretty sure somebody holds up a plane with a grenade, a live grenade." That actor is James Brolin. Cut to like months and months later, Josh gets cast in the film, and then at some point, not immediately, I said, "Oh, your dad is in this too." So it was kind of completely wild to him. So there's 2 Brolins in the movie.
And the whole Michael Cera thing, I had to leave after. I wanted to get as far as the house raid before I left because I wanted to see that on the big screen. You've always loved action cinema. I mean, in Baby Driver, you're doing it as kind of, you know, a choreographed dance move, but you love the mechanics of action cinema. During that sequence, it turns into Home Alone, and I can feel you enjoying yourself. Tell me about doing that home raid.
You would like this. We pitched it as Home Alone meets Straw Dogs.
Very good.
2 films that have never been in the same sentence before. And a bit of People Under the Stairs as well.
Oh, yeah.
I like a booby-trapped house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun to do that. And also just like fun, you know, great Michael and Glenn, seeing those 2 together, such like interesting comic energy. I mean, the thing is that it's fun. It's action films are fun when it all comes together. The making of it is always like really arduous and like complicated and a lot of moving parts, and all of the action set pieces were really tough to do. But you know,
are you on top of all that? You don't second unit all that. You are on top of what everything has to look like.
Yes, but I will say the second unit were great. Usually what you would do is like the things that take a long time to do. If there's like a stunt that like this is like a 3-hour or 4-hour setup, that's exactly where
Yeah.
second unit is your friend, and maybe we might be shooting something around the corner, or it might be a Sunday and I come in and it's like, okay, goons on fire. This is gonna be a minute. This shouldn't be part of our main like unit day. So you just got to sort of strategize. And an incredible like stunt team, great, amazing stunt coordinator Nikki Berwick. Darren Prescott was the second unit director who did Baby Driver with me. So, but you plan all this stuff out together, and also you kind of had to, because Glenn is so much the focus of every bit of action. You sort of had to design it all around him because he wants to do as much as he can. And also a big part, the two big parts of the adaptation for me that I wanted to bring from the original novel is, number one, Ben is in every scene.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even in most of these other films, you'll cut away, and maybe even after the first draft, we got notes from the studio saying, what about cutting back to the network building, or what about cutting to Sheila and Kathy or somebody else
But it has to be first person. It has to be his perspective.
That's what I said. I agree. So that was something we stood firm on, is like, it has to be from Ben's perspective because it'd be a lot more intense, and also because you only have the same information that he does. What he sees on the TV is all he knows, but then what's on the TV might be 95% bullshit.
Yeah.
Then the second thing, which is unlike the 87 film, is that he's on the run in the world. In the earlier one, they sort of keep it in a sort of more rollerball, sort of subterranean arena.
Yeah.
And I always loved in the movie, you know, I must admit, when I saw the 87 one, I was a little disheartened that it was a smaller scale. But I would like to now say to the makers of the movie, having done the shoot in 165 locations, I understand why you made that decision. That was definitely the most, beyond the action, definitely the most ambitious part of it, where, you know, Ben Richards is on the run and you as a production feel like you're on the run as well.
When you have a leading man who looks like that in a towel, how hard was it to talk him into a scene in which an entire scene plays out with him in a towel? And incidentally, watching that scene in IMAX, wow.
That should be the poster. That's your pull quote. Glenn Powell in a towel. Wow, Mark Kermode.
In IMAX.
In IMAX. Well, I'll say this. He is a real trooper, because the part where he's hanging outside the building was one of the bits that we shot in Sofia, Bulgaria, and it was -10 when we shot that scene. So Glenn's a trooper. I'll say that much.
Plaudits. So look, one of the things your films are always known for is you have a really smart use of needle drops, and there is a lot of really kind of well-chosen pop music, but there is also a score that is telling you the story. So tell me about working with your composer and how you tell the story through the incidental music.
Stephen Price is like the fourth time I worked with him, and one of the things that we've done a couple of times now, and this is no exception, is in a sort of Ennio Morricone, Sergio Leone style. He's written a lot of score just from reading the script, which is amazing.
Okay.
So like reads the script and sort of comes up with some cues, some of which are like in the finished film. Obviously he kind of adapts it to the actual action, but it's like the themes that he felt. And the thing that Steve had to do on this is like double duty, because he's doing all of the TV incidental music as well.
Right, so he has to do all the theme tunes. And...
yeah, Speed the Wheel and The Running Man and all the adverts. So it was a lot of work for him, but it was also funny seeing him switch between his kind of like serious composer and sort of his Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Steve Price.
And what about the needle drops? Because I mean, you've got a really kind of great jukebox sensibility. I mean, people know that through your films anyway, but how did you get the musical palette in terms of those needle drops right? Do you sit down when you're writing the script and write them into the stuff that you...
Yeah, I got to give credit to Michael Bacall. A couple of the big ones are ones that like he had written into the first draft. We worked on the treatment together, and then he wrote the first draft, and then we worked on it after that. But like, I got to give him credit for Underdog and the Stone song. I mean, both songs that I loved. But then going beyond that, because it's a bit different from Baby Driver and Soho, where the songs are sort of the characters are using them as inspiration. In this, it is more like they are like sort of, you know, they're needle drops, but they're all on a theme. So, I mean, I've loved that John Congas song, He's Gonna Step on You Again, for like years and years. And finally, like, it's like the movie matches up with the song. It's like, oh, this, on a thematic level, this is a song that has to be in the movie. So sometimes they're like songs that you've kind of like wanted to use forever. But in this case, they're all like thematic, you know, Search and Destroy and the Miles Davis. And Actually, when I was, I started to get nervous when I was watching press for One Battle After Another because they kept playing "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised," and I had to eventually get in touch with somebody who said, "Hey, is that in your movie?" "Oh, it is." "Okay, it's in our movie too." And I thought, well, it's 2025. If ever there was a year where "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised" would turn up twice, this is it.
And you mentioned Baby Driver and Last Night in Soho, and obviously it would be tempting to think that the action stuff is very influenced by the lessons that you learn. I know you've always had an action sensibility, the lessons that you learned in Baby Driver, but actually Last Night in Soho, which I think is actually one of your finest films, the choreography in that, the way in which that film is choreographed, that must have taught you a lot that you brought to play in this film.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of the only way to also, it should be worth saying that how do you make a movie like this in a year is like, working with people you've worked with before. We're very loyal to, with a couple of exceptions, people who are new to this film, like Nikki Berwick and Julian Day, the amazing costume designer. Everybody else had worked on one of the previous movies. And, in that, with Soho in mind, my second movie working with Chung Chung-hoon, the great South Korean cinematographer who did Old Boy and The Handmaiden and Thirst and Lady Vengeance. I knew, like, just from this, like, when we were writing the script, is like, this is the perfect Chung movie. And just working with him again and just, his work on screen, just of what he gets out of the darkness in the movie and the the night shoot stuff, it's just amazing. But a lot of it as well, like in a similar way, is like you have to make kind of like choices in terms of the point of focus in a similar way of Ben's in every scene, but then Ben is sort of leading the action the whole time, which is both like limiting and sort of freeing at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, working with the team, and also like my regular editor Paul Matchless, like is that there are things that carry over. I mean, they're two very dissimilar films, but like there is some crossover. Yeah.
I read an interview with you when you were talking about Last Night in Soho, a lot of location work and obviously a lot of night shooting. And you described the moment of sunup as being vampire time.
I call it Dracula o'clock.
Dracula o'clock.
Which means when the sun comes up, you're dead.
You're dead, yeah, fine. So that was the really big challenge with Soho. And you've said here 165 locations. What was the biggest challenge with this?
I mean, just the moves. I will say we didn't have any problems with getting night shooting in Glasgow in November. We had hardly any day. So I think just the action is always tricky. I think just the fact that this was so on the move and like that road movie aspect, is a really, it was something that I really wanted to take from the book of how expansive he is. It's like hide and seek on a national, even global level, and not just Ben Richards' story. Obviously, you see on the TVs, you see bits of the other shows. Yeah. So you have to do the other contestants. There's this thing we call the hardest hits. You see it on the wall in the reception. It's almost like shooting a snuff movie version of Jackass. It's just like 34 different deaths, and we had to shoot all of those. So we kind of had this endless catalog of like different stuntmen kind of dying in spectacular ways.
And Americanos, which obviously yes. You obviously had fun doing. So the theme tune for Americanos is...
It's a cover of a Holly Johnson song. But it's sung by Glenn's sister, Leslie. Glenn's sister genuinely does music for Selling Sunset. And I was like, ooh, have I got something for you? So can you do a cover of this song and make it sound like Selling Sunset, which she did.
At the very beginning of this, I'm aware we're going to run out of time in a minute. At the very beginning of this, I said only sort of partly in joking that obviously there is a political resonance to this at the moment. The interesting thing about it is that weirdly enough, it's not even divisive along left and right lines, is it? Because at the center of it is the fundamental distrust of the media, which seems to cut across boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and having done test screenings, it feels like in the middle of the Venn diagram is the same baddie. And, and the idea of just going up against the system. I mean, the thing is also like, and this is like the book as well, the government are barely mentioned. They talk about the network. There's like a passing reference to the President of the United States. And, and Bradley, played by Daniel Ezra, says about the network owning the government. Yeah. So, this is something, I mean, like you said, it's kind of like we're sort of the fiction part of the science fiction is faint. But I think it's the job of genre cinema is you're holding up like a funhouse mirror to reality. And so I think all the films that I love the dystopian films that I love, they're like an exaggeration of where we're at, but they're also like a warning.
So just a final thing. Did anything get away? Was there anything that you really wanted but you just ran out of time or is there anything that you didn't get?
I can't think off the top of my head. I feel really pleased with it. It was a Herculean effort, and I feel like I slightly maybe set like a bad precedent for myself in terms of people saying, "Oh, they can do that in a year." Like I wouldn't. I mean, it was literally like a sort of like you know. And listen, these are high class problems to have. Being a film director is the best job in the world, but you couldn't do a movie like this without not just me, but everybody working really hard. The post production team. It was like a year of like 6-day weeks and 7-day weeks and 16-hour days. So like you couldn't do it without the team and like all the hours they work. So they're all watching it like right now, and we had the cast and crew, and it's also a nice thing. Like sometimes you just want to see everybody's work on screen. Actually, even the end credits, the graphics department led by Sophie Powell did this amazing job in Elton's like room in his headquarters. They had all the other covers of The Truth around the walls, and they were so detailed and so amazing, but there weren't too many close-ups of them. So I remember standing there and saying to Marcus, this is like 6 months before, I said, we should scan all these covers and make it the end credits. There's so much work in these zines. We got to get it all in the movie. So that's how the end credits came about.
Very last thing, what did you give to Stephen King?
So when I met Stephen King, one, I gave him a copy of The Truth. So he has a copy of that zine. Two, if you notice, the other thing for sort of like King heads is when they go into the locker room, which was actually shot in Tottenham Hotspur changing rooms. Our first AD.
You know that what I know about football is nothing at all. That's a popular football team, right?
Yeah, well, I tell you this, our AD, I'll get back to the proper story in a second. Our first AD, when we shot in Tottenham Hotspur changing rooms the first time, we actually got thrown out of the location because it was like a hard out at 8. And usually sometimes it's like, hey, we need to go over half an hour and finish the shot. They kicked us out. And I know why is our first assistant director, Richard Graysmark, wore an Arsenal shirt that day. And I was like, you're going to get us in trouble. They're going to be pissed off with you. And I still think I was right.
Yeah, that is a joke that even I get. So, anyway, back to
that. So in that scene in the Tottenham Hotspur changing room, you see all the other jumpsuits for the other shows, all color-coded, and the Running Man ones are sort of scarlet red, you know, to look like a sort of like a, you know, the most dangerous prisoner, high security risk. So they've all got surnames at the top, and they're all like actors who have been in Stephen King films. Walken, Spacek, Travolta, Cat, Bates, Freeman, Stanton, even the guys in the Apostle tape. It's like Holbrook, Stone, and maybe that's Stanton there actually, like actors. But then King, because obviously Stephen King is in many of his films, probably most notably Creepshow, in which he plays a major part. So there was a lime green jumpsuit with King on it for a show called Bug Out, which I'm really glad we didn't have to film any of that one. And I was thinking, I'm going to give Stephen King the Bug Out jumpsuit. So he owns the lime green jumpsuit, and he was very excited to receive it.
Fantastic. Edgar, congratulations, not just on getting it in on time, but on doing such a bang-up job. Ladies and gentlemen, Edgar Wright.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.